Hey guys, I'm Pixel Dan, and this is a review of the Masters of the Universe Classics Blast Attak. That's right, it's another one of those characters who came out towards the end of the vintage Masters of the Universe toy line, and he is finally getting an updated action figure. So let's check him out. As you can see, he comes on that standard Masters of the Universe Classics blister card packaging, complete with the Snake Men logo right there on the front of the blister. And when you flip that around to the backside, we get a look at some of the other figures in the Classics line, and down below that, we've got ourselves a brand new bio for Blast Attak. Alright, so let's go ahead and take this guy out of the packaging and get a closer look at him. Blast Attak is one of those really wild characters from the vintage line that just had a very garish color scheme. Yep, there was something about him that I always found kind of mesmerizing. And I will say that the Four Horsemen and Mattel have done a great job of capturing that same wild color scheme right here in this brand new update to the character. There's a lot of weird colors going on with this guy. His arms are sort of a darker gray. His gloves and his boots are a dark green in color. He's got some black seen on his belt and his thighs and his helmet. His body is a metallic golden color with some red highlights, and then his face is a bright blue. Yeah, it's a lot of really weird colors that you don't normally picture all together, yet somehow in the world of Masters of the Universe, this works. And it looks really good on this guy. The paintwork is very nicely done. I specifically love the gold that is used on his body because it's got a really nice metallic sheen to it. It's not done in a vac metal or anything like that, and that's fine because the vintage figure wasn't done that way, but it definitely has a nice sheen to it that looks very good, especially under the lighting that I have here. All of the paintwork is nice and clean, and there's really no rough spots or anything like that on this guy whatsoever. Just very cool looking. And the sculpt on the guy is very nicely done. He does a great job of capturing the look of the character as he appeared in that vintage line. There is some reused parts on there. You'll notice that the arms are those same trap jaw and roboto arms that we've seen used a few times over, but they do work for Blast Attak. But there's a lot of new stuff going on here too. The legs, very cool looking, lots of great details like all of the little tubings and all that kind of line work done in the body there, wires and all that fun stuff hanging out specifically on his body. I always love the little detail like the wires kind of going into what looks like a gauge or maybe even a time clock right there on his chest, since his feature was that he exploded. So I always thought that was kind of a cool little detail, and it was worked in nicely on the sculpt here. And another little fun tidbit, on the back of this guy, you're going to notice that he does have the little port where his little action feature plugged into on the vintage toy. He had this little plunger piece that plugged into the back, and when you press the button, that's what exploded the figure. You'll also notice that he even has a line going down the center of his torso on both the front and the back that is supposed to symbolize how the figure split into half. So pretty fun little details on there. And then that head sculpt is really nicely done. He's just got this crazy black helmet with this really creepy blue face peeking out. You can see there's some really neat little kind of scaly details around his red eyes there. And then he's got those really sharp teeth kind of sticking out of his mouth. So very cool look for the character all around. Alright guys, let's go ahead and take a closer look at Blast Attak. Blast Attak is pretty neat because he's mostly your standard buck on this guy, right? But one of the things that makes this guy very different is the fact that the armor is a non-removable piece on him. It was designed so that it's pretty much permanently attached to the figure. You can see that there's no tabs or anything, so there's no way to actually pull this off. This is a separate armor piece that's over, I believe it's a Horde Trooper robot body underneath painted red, and you can kind of see parts of it when you like bend him, you know, you move the ab joint there, but you can't take that off. Now, one of the benefits of that, without the tabs on the side, you can see that the armor is incredibly form-fitting. He doesn't have those bulky lats like we've seen on some of the other guys. So that is really nice. It's a little weird that we can't take the armor off, but you know what? I'm okay with that on a figure like this because it really works with his build. He wasn't actually wearing armor. He was a solid robot in the vintage line, so that's how it works. Of course, no action features, so he doesn't pull in half like the vintage one does, but kind of neat to still see the line drawn on the armor there. Otherwise, your articulation functions exactly like you'd expect. That head turns left and right. It can slightly move up and down, but not too much there. You got your standard joints at the shoulder, so the arms can go outwards, forwards, and backwards. You got your swivels at the bicep. You got your standard elbow joint, your swivel at the wrist. You can still do the ab crunch a little bit. You can see it hinders a little bit because of that armor, but it still moves up and down just a bit. We got swivels at the waist. You can see he's got that great loincloth piece that is all the way around, fully attached, which is very nice. You can split the legs all the way out, forwards, backwards, swivel at the thighs, standard joints at the knees, swivels at that boot cut. Really nice ankle articulation, no pin showing, and the ankle joint is really tight on this guy. So, very solid feeling action figure, poses very well, stands up very nicely. Very cool. Alright, so Blast Attak here includes 2 accessories. First up is his really crazy looking axe weapon that comes straight out of the vintage toy line. It's a perfect update of the way that the weapon looked back then. It's all done in a solid red color, so there's not a lot of extra paint details on here, except on the blade of the axe. Now, it's a very subtle detail, so I don't know if you can make it out on here, but the blade portion of the axe is actually done in sort of a more metallic red. So that is very cool, especially when caught under the right lighting. Now, one thing I do want to point out about this axe is it is made of a bit of a gummy plastic. It's a lot more flexible than I would kind of hope with a weapon like this. It can fit in his right hand the best. His left hand has got that more open mold there, so it can still hold on to the axe, but you're definitely going to get a tighter grip with that right hand. Now, his second accessory is awesome. I just love the nod that this is. It's an energy whip, but the whip is basically designed to look like that old plunger accessory from the vintage toy that you plugged into his back to actually explode the figure. But now it's a whip, and it's really cool. The white portion of the whip is made of a very flexible plastic, so you can see it's very flexible there. You can really kind of wind it around and whip it and everything. Very cool. And then the little plunger piece on the tip has actually been turned into sort of this little trident type piece that's on the end of the whip. And then the little button is actually the handle of the whip now. So you can put that in either one of his hands, and you've got an extra accessory for Blast Attak, which is genius. I love it. Alright guys, it's comparison time. Here's the new Blast Attak action figure standing alongside his vintage counterpart. So you can see just how similar these two are in appearance, but you can really see the cool updates on the new Classics version. So there you go, my friends. There's a look at the Masters of the Universe Classics Blast Attak figure. This is one of those guys that I always kind of wondered if we'd actually see a new figure of, because essentially that vintage toy was a suicide bomber. I mean, his whole deal was that he exploded himself, and that's a little weird for an action figure these days, so I always kind of wondered if we'd see this guy, but I'm very glad that we did get him. Now, he obviously doesn't have that exploding action feature that the vintage toy had, but we haven't really had action features like that in the Classics line. Overall, I think he was done really well. I love the detailing on the figure. He's a great update of the vintage one, and I love the addition of that cool plunger whip. I think that's a really neat accessory. So this guy had a Snake Man emblem on his packaging because in those vintage mini comics, Blast Attak was built by King Hiss and he hung out with the Snake Men. But there has been other media where he has also been with your Evil Warriors. So it's really up to you. You can display this guy with Skeletor, you can display him with King Hiss. He's yours to display however you wish. Blast Attak is part of the 2015 Club Eternia subscription and will be available on MattyCollector.com in May 2015. So happy hunting, my friends! And again, special thanks to Mattel for sending this figure along early so we can get a closer look at it. If you guys enjoyed this video, please hit that like button, subscribe to my channel, and until next time.